welcome to Around the Old Town. With me today is Corporal John Marquardt of the United States Army. John, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here all in one piece. I know your mother's thrilled to have you here in one piece.
She's excited. It's good to be home.
I bet.
It's good to be home.
John comes from, he's an Abington native, and the family has a proud tradition of law enforcement and giving to the community. I know I was involved with the youth football program, and the Marquardt Trophy is named after your father and your father and his brother. Yep. So I'm really thrilled to have you here, John.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
John, I want to talk about some of your positive experiences being in the Army, and what people in Abington did for you and what other people did for you, and just your positive experiences that you want to relate to us.
Sure. I was assigned to a 12-month tour in Afghanistan, and when we went over, my company was split in half, and we were one 40-man platoon. Our job was to provide security for what they call a PRT. What that is, it's called the Provincial Reconstruction Team. Essentially what the job is for that is we would provide security for engineers, doctors, nurses, teachers, government, like people that would build governments kind of from the ground up. We would provide security for them. So what they would do is, like, Navy Seabees, Army Corps of Engineers would go in, and we'd build schools, roads, bridges.
All the infrastructure.
Yeah, basically the infrastructure from the ground up, because the area where I was at is the Kunar province. It's mainly a mountainous region, and they're kind of stuck in biblical times. There's no really approved roadways. It's all dirt roads, and we would go there, and we would, just like we said, we would build them up from
scratch.
From the scratch, right, yes, yeah, essentially, right. And we would try to make inroads with the local population there, because it was a mainly, since the war on terror began, that was a Taliban stronghold, because it's about 5 miles from the Pakistani border. Okay. And we would try to make an inroads with the people there, let them know that the Americans were here to help, and we would try to do all these positive things for them, so that they could see what our lifestyle was like, back here, sure, and try to bring a piece of our home to them.
Now, the Kunar province, as you said, is close to Pakistan, so I would imagine that your job, it's not like working in the office type thing. You literally had to protect the Seabees and the Army Corps of Engineers. And
yes, that's correct. A lot of times, I wasn't on a regular, like a base, like for instance, like in Kabul. I was on what they call FOB. It's called the Forward Operating Base. It's called FOB Right. It was nestled in between in the Hindu Kush mountain region. Okay. So there would be these big mountains, and we would just kind of like right down in the valley, and it was there was no hard structured buildings or anything like that. We had to make our own beds. Sure. We slept on cots. We had you were bathing with baby wipes and bottled water for a lot of times. Right. And it was there wasn't really hot meals to go around. You were eating meals ready to eat out of the MRE bags, right? So it was a challenging area, because a lot of times there was 120-degree weather, sure, and then the next day it was almost like New England. Then the next day it would be like 10 degrees.
If you don't like the weather, wait a minute.
Yeah. So I mean, one day you'd be nestled up in your snivel gear with all warm, and then the next day it's 100 degrees out. So there was really no consistency over there as far as sure, weather patterns and whatnot.
You mentioned the MRE bags. Mr. Snyder of Abington is a scientist who works with the military and helps develop the food right, for that. Yes.
Yep. And they're great meals to have. Obviously, that's why the Army gives them out, and they keep you alive. Right. Because.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they keep you alive because a lot, like I said, that because the area is so volatile, a lot of times you can't get food out there. So right, this is what you live on.
Yeah, you're on your own.
You're right. That's it. You're on your own. We don't. The time period that I was there is when a lot of people may be familiar with it, was when Pakistan shut down the border crossing area, right, where we couldn't get food. So I mean, everything, supplies was limited. Deodorant, Q-tips,
like basic necessities.
The things that we take for granted that we have, over there, you go a week without shaving, and sometimes you can't even take a shower, and you're going insane because you got all this stubble on your face, and if you shave, if you feel like your face is going to be a piece of leather.
Right. So I know the feeling. Now, you mentioned building the infrastructure. Roughly how many residents were there?
Well, the way that Afghanistan works is that they're built on tribes. Each village has their own tribal elder, and the tribal elder is the most influential person in the village. everything goes to them. It's almost like they're almost like the mayor of their village. And everything goes to them. Even the Taliban are so respectful towards the village elders that they will never go against the village elders' word in most cases. They have over there what they call, it's almost like their own moral code, their own moral ethics. It's called Pashtunwali. And basically what that is that they're supposed to provide care for you and treat you like you were their own. So say, for instance, if I was injured or hurt, they would take me in. They would have to provide me the same type of benefit that they would give their own family. And that's the code that they live by, and they would never break that. There's actually documented cases within the U.S. military of them doing that. Wow. And they have strict code, like a strict honor code that they live by, and they practice that. And within the villages, it depends on how many people there. They live in there's structures in this area from when Alexander the Great
still remaining
right. Structures. They're a little dilapidated, but they're impressive, to say the least. And they live in these mud huts, almost like adobe mud huts like that, and they're just mud packed walls with some trees and some sand, and it's different living. So a few people live in there. The families generally stay together, and depending upon the size of the village, you could have 10, 20, 30, 40 people in there.
Oh, so it's relatively small. We're not talking Abington size.
No. Relatively small, and they're fairly scattered throughout the area. There's not a lot of their main way to get by is by donkey.
Sure.
There's cars in some of the areas that I was at, but mainly your mode of transportation would be donkey.
Right. Now, when you talked about building the infrastructure, obviously roads would be a priority because you have to get things to and from.
Sure.
I would imagine structures of some sort, whether it be commercial or hospitals.
Well, yeah, a lot of the things that we would do is we built a radio station to keep because there's obviously the people need to be informed about what their government and what their area can do for them. So one of the projects that I was proud that we were able to do is we were able to build a radio station for them to help keep the people informed. It was mainly just to put out positive messages within the community. Hey, come out for this event to support your community, stuff like that. Like my area
sounds like around the old town.
Yeah, my area is real supportive of women's rights there. And they would have what they call a dower, and basically what it was a women's group, like a women's voice. Because if people know anything about that area, they know that women, for the most part, they're treated not on the same level.
Like a second-class citizen.
Second-class citizen, right. Essentially. So a lot of the things that the U.S. government would do would try to advance women's issues. So they would have these dowers where they would get influential women in the village to get together to voice their concerns about things that have happened, things that they think are important to the village, and to be able to bring those up to the tribal elders, to their government leaders. Because much like us, they have their own set of government too. They have like a selectmen, they have like village representatives. So we've built it where they're structured based on how almost like our county government is type that. Selectmen, cities and aldermen,
right.
All sorts of stuff like that. So there's representatives for each layer of person that's there in the village, and these people will voice their concerns to them, much like we do and our elected officials, and they bring it to the next table, and then each province has a governor.
Okay.
Much like the state of Massachusetts, each province has their own governor, and then the governor goes to the president of the country, and he says to President Karzai, and they're like, okay, Kunar province, we need money for another hospital, and they'll say, okay, well, this is you don't need it as much as say another place
like
does,
the Kabul area.
but we'll give you this. Like the Nuristani province, they need hospitals more because they have a larger concentration of people. So it's essentially government building from the ground up.
And you've been instrumental in trying to join the two in a sense.
Yeah, well, I was there with the people that I was there for the people that did it. I was fortunate enough to be able to meet people from the Department of State,
right,
the Department of Justice. One of the best things I saw was we were the first region in entire Afghanistan to hold insurgent trials, and to put rule of law in that country. And Kunar province was the first one to do that, and I was there for the first insurgent trial in Afghanistan in the country's history.
Right.
And that was impressive to be a part of, because I saw the men from the Department of Justice. They picked these judges, they picked these lawyers, they put them on trial. And it was nice to see the justice system work.
Sure.
To be able to come literally from the ground up, and to see the morals build up inside the judges and the prosecutors and the defense attorneys, and to be able to see them come together. And to see justice be done for the people of the area, and not just for insurgents either, for common crimes as well, for any type of thefts. Fuel theft is a big thing over there, so they were always prosecuting.
The black market.
Right, and black market's very large over there, so there's always that type of thing to go with there as well.
Right. Now you mentioned the women and second-class citizens. How do we, as Americans, and you in particular as a soldier there, how was the group able to try to bring that to light? Like especially in that province, that's a heavy Taliban province.
A lot of the times, what we would do is we would want to put a female face with those females as well. I worked a lot with Army Civil Affairs, and anytime they would meet with the women, like I personally would not meet with the women just because it's against Muslim tradition, but we would have a female Army person go in and meet with them, and that's how we would try to put an American female face with an Afghan female face, and work out the issues that they had that way.
Smart idea.
Yeah, and it does a lot of good. It
right,
really
and you're
does.
still respecting their traditions too.
Exactly, and that's a big thing for them. A lot of them feel like that people don't really respect their traditions, their values, and stuff like that. And it's basically just coming to an understanding on everything.
Right.
I think that's probably one of the more important things, and one of the biggest inroads that we've made since in the 11 years we've been there is that we've more or less come to understand their culture as less than 10 years ago. Like we don't litter over there. Like littering is a huge problem there because they don't have like a trash system.
Right.
So like to be like that was a huge problem for them.
Right.
So we found like ways to be able to help them with that, and like that's not part of their culture. Like
right. They've never dealt with that because they don't have many products.
Right.
And
so, I mean,
how about like sewer and whatnot? There's
unfortunately right now there's no sewer system. I mean there's the Kunar River is the main river that runs through where I'm at, and that's kind of just like. It just goes there. You just kind of just go on the side of the road, really. Yeah. It's still, like I said, in my area, it's not like that in every area. Some areas have. My area specifically, they're still a couple hundred years behind as far as technology. And basically, they'll get what we give them.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're not there with them yet.
Now, we must be spending a lot of money there.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of money being spent there. I would, I know, the newspapers sometimes don't paint things in a positive light as far as that, but there's a lot of good things that the money's going to there. I mean, much like anything, not everything's going to be earmarked or spent the way you want it to be, but, kids are getting to go to the hospital now, they're getting to go to clinics, boys and girls are getting to go to schools, and, people are going to get a chance at life, whereas, 10, 11 years ago, these people weren't getting that opportunity. And I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I mean, that was the most important thing is we actually gave people an opportunity to live life.
Right, to improve their quality of life.
To be able to have, not necessarily our way of doing things, but to be able to have the option to do it whatever way they want. I mean, if they want to go back to doing things the way that they did, then that's fine, but at least we gave them the option to be able to get educated, to be able to go to a doctor and get penicillin or Tylenol, or to go to a dentist, or to have in some cases, have an x-ray if need be.
Sure, especially if the IUDs or anything.
Right, and those are always the injuries there with all of our firepower and all the things that they have are catastrophic, and there's nowhere to go, and the pregnancy rate where women lose children over there is very high. Yeah. I know that they've been able to eliminate some of the statistics out of that to be able to increase their chances of being able to have a healthy child, and that's because of the hospitals that are being built, the clinics. The level of education that the doctors and the nurses are receiving there, because there's a lot of other countries that send foreign aid workers to come in to be able to train these people to work in these hospitals and get them trained up to to be able to be self-sufficient. And
then you're basically protecting those people that were training.
Yeah, and basically my job is just to make sure that, because the Taliban they're all set with progress. Right. They don't want you to go to school. They don't want you to have those hospitals. They don't want us to do anything. Their job basically. Taliban is a different enemy from what it was 10 or 11 years ago. Basically, what they do is they'll go in and try to raise hell in the village, and they'll basically tell you what the problem is and who's to blame for it, and the Americans are to blame for it, and then try to incite things like that. Whereas we're out there being like, no, listen, you have to do this for yourself. You have to do this for you. It's not us doing this to you. It's you doing it to you, and try to be able to work with them. So they mainly just come. They spread a lot of propaganda. Is very big over there. They drop a lot of obviously there's not a lot of TVs, so they drop leaflets at night,
Sure.
and they call them night letters, and they'll drop them in the village, and it's propaganda, just like every other country that's at war.
Right.
They'll try to go back and forth and sway each other to their side of the fence.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Now, you mentioned earlier about the wipes and it's funny, I never having served in the military, I used to take for granted the fact that things, like you said, shaving cream, wipes, maybe not at the extended bases where you were, but at least at the main bases in Kabul and stuff, it was a given that you would have all these things. You come out from your work out in the desert and in the mountains, and you came back and you took a shower that we provided with plumbing and wipes and whatnot, and cleaned your weapons. But I've found out that a lot of the soldiers were given almost nothing at all for wipes, and oftentimes relied on friends and care packages.
Sure. The best thing about our country, regardless of what somebody's opinion is about the wars, for the most part, the support's always been there,
Right.
especially from this. I can't thank the citizens of Abington enough. I grew up here. I was born and raised, and it's always gonna have a place in my heart. And the people were so generous with what they would send towels, candy, just like a pack of Twizzlers, when stuff that can remind you of home, the little things that you miss about home,
Sure.
They make a big difference. With Q-tips, like huge, because Q-tips, you can clean your weapon with Q-tips, and you can clean your ears with them. They serve a dual purpose. And
Right.
baby wipes are such a big thing. And the people always, I can't name the number of times I'd hear my name getting yelled out, and I'd get some care package from somebody on Randolph Street, or somebody from Lincoln Street,
Or Woodsdale School. Right.
Woodsdale School, or St. Bridget's, or or the Veterans Agent, or
Sure.
just anything, or the VFW, or the American Legion. But there was always stuff coming in, and a lot of the stuff at times it was overwhelming, because I'd have these piles of boxes outside of my door, and it would be like there'd be books, there'd be magazines, there'd be crossword puzzles, pens, pencils, socks.
Yeah.
Like, even though I particularly didn't have a use for some of those items, I was able to give them to people that did,
Sure.
that needed socks. I was able to give deodorant to, because deodorant's very hard to get over there.
Right.
You can pretty much name your price for that in my area. So
It's like cigarettes in prison, I
yeah,
guess.
right. And there's items there that are a hot commodity, baby wipes, Advil, things like that, things that go a long way to help and increase troop morale. And Abington was one of the areas that was in the communities was on the forefront of being able to bring that stuff to people, and we were able to give it to Afghans.
Right, you mentioned to me about the tube socks. Would you relate?
Yeah, I didn't really have I don't wear tube socks, it's not for me.
Right.
But, they don't wear socks over there, and their feet are always mangled. They walk around in sandals or on the ground.
And it's mountainous area.
The area I'm at, it's kind of treacherous terrain, so I mean, throw a kid a set of socks and show them that, this is what you do with them. You wear them like this, and
Right, not as mittens.
this is what it does, and you kind of demonstrate, because universal sign language works anywhere. Even though
Exactly.
even if you can't communicate with them in Pashto, you can kind of just say hey, and
Right, show them
they
and
feel it,
demonstrate.
and then they're like, oh yes, this is good. Like, so
Yeah.
we were able to, and I was able to, I served a lot of my time too. For pretty much half of my deployment, I served a lot of time with Afghan military forces. So I was able to train with them, to teach them some of the ways that we do things, and they were able to teach us some of the ways that they do things.
Right.
And these are gentlemen that they fought the Russians in the 80s.
Exactly,
Like,
right, 1980.
These are warriors, and I fought alongside these guys in several instances, and they're brave men, and men that truly care about their country and love their country, and love what we do for them.
They know the reason you're there.
Yeah,
Right.
and they love the fact that we're there to help them out, and they want to learn from us. They want to train with us, and they're absolutely accepting of anything that we give them: shoes, sandals, boots,
Right.
socks, baby wipes, Tylenol, books. Even if they can't read, they love it, because they don't know what a book.
No, in pictures.
Yeah,
and-
they're not used to, like, magazines. Like, even just showing them a Sports Illustrated, like they have no idea like what's going on in the pages, but it's something that they've never seen it
Experienced.
before.
Sure.
So it's
Right, and they're open-minded. Obviously, they're
they're-
intelligent people who have
Yeah.
fought the Russians and fight now with
Sure.
with the Taliban
Very-
for 30-odd years
Yeah.
now.
They're very open-minded, and they want to know they want to come to America. They want to experience, our way of life. Like a lot of the linguists that we had, the interpreters that we
Sure.
would use. Their main goal was they became interpreters for us, so that they could come over here,
Earn their
go
wages.
to school, and be able to learn about and live our lifestyle, because our lifestyle to them, like, they feel like us, like they see like the bootleg movies, and like they see like Rambo, and they think that and this is actually a true story. I I served with a guy, and he taught himself, he self-taught English. He learned English from, picking up slang from American soldiers all over the years. And, I remember talking to him one night over some, we were having chai one night at like 3 o'clock in the morning on an OP, or an observation post. We were on top of a mountain watching for Taliban. And we were talking, and he said, what you guys don't, what the Americans don't get is, I don't know about your way of life. And he goes, the only thing I know about America is Rambo.
Right, through
and
film.
If through film, so they think like that every American,
right,
is
every
like,
soldier,
every soldier's Rambo, and we all, they think that's what we're like.
Right.
So and it's funny to be able to talk to them about that stuff and tell them like, no, it's not like that. Like you do this, or you show them pictures from home, and
sure.
you show them cars, like things that you drive, and they see like these big excursions or these big Ford Explorers, and they have no idea.
Sure.
Like, they've never seen anything like
tanks, maybe, right.
They've never seen anything like that in their life. So it's fun in the same sense to be able to share those different types of experiences with them.
You also mentioned some candy and stuff to the kids, and how the kids a lot of times aren't exposed to, they've had nothing, literally nothing. As you said, not even socks. As you say, things we take for granted.
Sure.
But you were able to share some of your food. And
yeah, some of the villages that we went into, we were going to a lot of the more remote villages, and we would start projects up to build schools for these kids. Now, boys and girls there are schooled, they're schooled separately.
Yes.
They're taught differently, and that's things that we're trying to work on. But they're taught separately. They're taught differently, and a lot of the care packages, you just stuff a bunch of Jolly Ranchers in your pocket, and you'd throw them to the kids, and they'd run around like fighting with each other over one Jolly
Sure.
Rancher, like to the death for it, because they've never had it before. So,
exactly.
one of the positive experiences I had was being able to give a kid his first piece of candy, just a young kid, first piece of candy. He said, hey, ask the father if it was okay. He's like,
right.
Yeah, good to go. And you give them a piece of candy, like they've never experienced that sour taste in their mouth.
Right.
Or, they give you the look, but they love it because
right.
it's like something that they've never ever had before. And
sure, totally
that's
different.
that's what we're there for. That's what we're there to do, is to, they talk about hearts and minds. Like it's important to do. We still have a job to do.
Right.
And our job is to get rid of the Taliban, but our job is also to show these people that we're there to help them to better their lives.
Right, you're not trying to usurp their authority.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Your experience now, you've been home.
Yep.
And it must have been some adjustment to come home. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different from, obviously in my area there's always an increased threat. There was always an increased threat of, whether it be suicide bombers, improvised explosive devices, vehicle-borne IEDs, things like that. The vehicles that they had over there were all white Toyotas, okay. And they had yellow stripes on them. And when the Taliban were in power, they used to call them Taliban taxis.
Sure.
And you knew it. You knew every car there was a white Toyota with a yellow stripe on the side. Well, every be on the lookout for the vehicle that we would get. It would be a white Toyota with a yellow stripe on it. So it's like you're walking down the street in the center of town, and the center of town, like where I was at, Nazarabad, was heavily populated, and it was like a bazaar almost, like
sure.
a big market, like food, poultry, weapons, little toys, trinkets, and stuff. And we're walking down there, and every car going by us is a white Toyota with a yellow stripe on it. So you're kind of sitting there like, oh, you're like,
is this them?
Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? And eventually, you get used to it. You're not used to it, but you have to accept the fact that you have a job to do, and if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right.
But you have to focus on the mission, go out and do it, and that's what you do every day. So coming home, and not necessarily seeing a white Toyota, but seeing a car buzz next to you real quick, you kind of just like,
yeah, your instincts pick up.
You're thinking, you're like, whoa,
right.
Wait a minute, and that was obviously tough to. Initially when I came home, it was an adjustment to be able to deal with that. It was also adjustment being able to deal with being around normal people.
Right, your family, for example.
And by normal, I don't mean to. The Afghans are normal people, but
right.
normal people to me. So
people that you grew up with, and
right. So being able to be around them and have the same conversations, not be on edge all the time. That was definitely difficult. Like I didn't want to go out too much when I first came home, just because I was home, I was away from my home I bought a house and never lived in it. All I wanted to do was stay in my house. You know what
right.
I mean?
Yeah.
So that was important to me, especially when I first got home.
Now, when you got home, you probably adjusted much easier than some other soldiers have, and fortunately you have your limbs and whatnot. We've all seen stories of many soldiers coming home, and they have to deal with post-traumatic stress, mentally, obviously physically. Is there something that's been going on that you might be able to relay about what ways we can help soldiers, or some help that soldiers are getting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the best things for me was that I was fortunate. thank God I was fortunate, enough to be able to come home and, I've got my limbs, I've got my wits, I've got, I saw things that, are unfortunate, just like everybody that's ever been there has saw things that are unfortunate. And luckily, I was given, resources and mechanisms of how to deal with those things. Sure. A lot of times, the Army is very big in investing in their soldiers now. So what they want to do is they want to make sure you're mentally fit when you come home. So before you even touch down on ground, you'll go through, especially for reservists and National Guardsmen, you'll go through what they call a demob process. You'll go to a site, like for instance, I went to Indiana, and you'll go there, and it's almost like an out processing from the theater that you were in. And essentially what you do is you'll undergo medical evaluations, you'll undergo mental health screenings, you'll undergo, if you got hurt over there, like they try to square you away, they try to set you up with counselors, and they try to set you up for success for when you get home. And that adjustment period is not as it's going to be, no matter what happens, you're going to have a difficult adjustment period when you come home. Nobody comes home and is the same.
Right, they pick right up from where they left off.
They try to do their best to limit the negative exposure that you'll have towards people, and they try to set you up with programs, counselors, get ready to go to school, get to doctor's appointments, get to the VA, get checked out, get a dentist appointment, go to a dermatologist, see a skin doctor, because the air over there is different.
Right.
There's all sorts of different programs that they want you to, that they initially they make you go through when you're there, and then they kind of have you piggyback on your way home to make sure that you're doing it when you go home. And then when you come home, for instance, like with my unit, we had 2 drills that we had to report, and we had to report 30, 60, and 90 days when we were home, just to make sure that, our mental fitness was good. Good. That we're not, nobody's at home kicking their dog or doing anything foolish that they shouldn't be doing. And it's basically holding non-commissioned officers, sergeants, corporals, making sure that those guys are responsible for their men, checking up on them, making sure that the guys are doing the right thing, that they're not falling into those traps that we've seen so many people fall into, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or just depression, battling PTSD type symptoms. So it's up to the individual soldiers to take care of their battle buddies and make sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, and that they have the resources that they have to be successful. That's
important, because you said 30, 60, 90 days, because those follow-ups are important. Not everyone's going to react the first week to post-traumatic stress, and if they're not working.
Certainly, and that's that's a big thing. A lot that they say, most of the briefings that I've been to, they say that it takes 6 months to adjust from the day you get home. It takes 6 months. And the most important thing is what your support structure is when you come home. Do you have good friends? Do you have good family? Are you hanging out with positive people? Or are you keeping yourself, you're being alone? Or like those 30, 60, 90-day checks were put in place because that's what the Army, that they spend millions of dollars to study this stuff. Right. So they're obviously right about it. And the goal is they're not going to reach everybody. I'm not going to be able to get to every one of my guys and make sure that they're doing the right thing, but I make every effort to do so. And you do it with the hope in mind that they take advantage of the resources that are given to them. Because a lot of guys, they just want to get home and forget about the Army. I'm out. I don't want to do it anymore. Right. But the resources are there. They're use it or lose it resources. Sure. So use them, because the government put them there in place for you. So because they're based on the experience of other soldiers. Because the guys that first went over in Iraq and Afghanistan, they were not, for lack of a better term, they were the test cases. We saw what it was like now. Right. And now they know that PTSD is a problem. They know that IEDs are a problem. They know that guys are having adjustment periods. They know that guys are coming home and that they don't have jobs, which is a huge thing. No doubt about it. I mean, you're under enough stress returning home from the military and then not to have work and have bills. That's the thing. A lot of guys would one of the big issues that they would have is that the Army pays for things while you're gone, but they don't pay for everything. And guys got kids, right? Wife and families, they got mortgages, they got car payments, they got cell phone, every other problem that we have back here, but we have it over there too. And it's you have the added on responsibility. And you have to decide: am I going to think about whether or not my wife's going to be able to make the mortgage payment this month, or am I going to think about whether or not I'm going to watch a white guy with the yellow stripe going by, or am I going to get hit by an IED today? And it's difficult to be able to balance those things. So then when you come home, you're used to doing things your way, and then you come home, and then the wife's had the routine going for a year. And she, like for instance, like for me, my fiance, I know when I came home, she couldn't wait to get me out because I was putting cereal in the wrong cabinets, and she's like, "I want you out, stop." Right. And what I didn't realize was that it was more important for her. It was an adjustment for her too to have me back. Right. And it was great to be home. It was nice to be around her, and it was nice for her to be around me. But it's an adjustment for spouses, it's an adjustment for families, it's an adjustment for kids, because kids,
Right, they're not used to having you around.
Dad's been mom was the disciplinarian for the year, and now Dad's home, and it's like, I don't have to listen to you.
Right.
So you're learning to do everything all over. So the Army has these programs. They have parenting programs. They have spousal programs where they have these, what they call these vet centers, and they're a great resource for veterans and their families. And basically, what they offer counseling services, they offer readjustment services, employment services. They're part of the VA healthcare system, but they're separate from them. They don't answer to them.
Great.
They answer to themselves. So you can go there for counseling. Your family can go there for free, and it's available to every veteran. I mean, I highly recommend it to take advantage of it if you can.
I would assume like people like the veterans agents here in Abington and Whitman, East Bridgewater, and all that, like Joe Colantoni,
Yep.
that they are aware of this guy. I know Joe does a tremendous job with
And
veterans.
he does an outstanding job. He's done an outstanding job since he's been doing it.
Right.
And he's a guy that served for a long time, and a lot of these programs weren't around
Exactly.
when he was coming up. And they know about him. They certainly do. And most of the veterans agents I know do an outstanding job. But like I said, you can't reach everybody.
No.
And there's a lot of things out there that guys don't know about that are out there and available towards them that I recommend and that they should take advantage of.
Some of the groups, we'll be talking to other groups, especially when school starts and everything. What are some of the supplies that some of the soldiers over there may need now?
Baby wipes is a big thing. They serve multi purposes. They can help clean your weapons. They can clean you.
You're right.
They can clean. The bacteria over there is a huge problem. Like antibacterial soap is big. There's so many, like every little item here that we would use for one thing has like 10 purposes overseas. Like razors, like not only can you use them, to shave, but you can use them to scrape off the carbon in your weapon. Like there's so many different dual purposes that they could be used for. So baby wipes, socks, face cloths. Candy is obviously really nice. I got hooked on gummy bears when I was over there, as you can see.
No, you look good.
Gum, any magazines. I mean, it's actually funny. One of my my lieutenant and I, people would send these magazines. I'm not sure who they knew the care packages were going to, because they would get like romance novels, like Harlequin romance novels, and, like People magazine and like Star magazine, all these gossip magazines. So I was up to date on like all the like celebrity gossip that was going on. Like there were these magazines, they're the only thing to read. So
you read them cover to cover,
so
right?
I knew everything that was going on about everybody. Right. I knew everyone's relationship status, and like that was it. That was your contact with the outside world, was a 3-week-old newspaper, because the internet there in my area, we couldn't get it. We had the internet, but it would go down all the time because we couldn't get a consistent internet provider to come out there, because there was always the threat of being bombed.
Right.
And we did get bombed quite often, but there would always be that threat. And it was always interesting to find out about something 3 weeks after it happened. So like the Super Bowl.
I'm surprised about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they tried broad. We lost it about halfway through. Yeah. So I didn't know the next day until the next day that they lost, so I was losing my mind. But
well, you didn't miss much.
Yeah, it was probably the worst day over. Like there was New York guys that we were over there with.
I bet.
And they were
so the rivalry there.
Yeah, they were celebrating all over. I was probably miserable for about 2 months after that.
Yeah, we all were here.
Yeah.
Well, I truly thank you for your time and all you did for the country, and your family's proud of you, and we're proud of you.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, the opportunity to be able to obviously come back here, talk about this stuff. There's guys in this town that they know they need help. The resources are out there. Go out and get it, because if you don't want to know what it's like if you don't. That's all. I mean, It's important. There's this school, there's healthcare, there's counseling, there's family, there's friends, there's all those things that are out there for these guys and women, and hopefully they take advantage of it. I
was a Boston police officer, as your dad was, one of my supervisors, and we worked a lot of the violent crime scenes, homicide scenes, and whatnot. And a lot of times it was macho to get help. Yeah. And it would eat the guys up, and that's a lot of times a high alcoholism rate, drug abuse rate. But if you're a soldier and you served and you need some help, or if you're a family friend of these soldiers, get in touch with someone, get them some help, because they serve their country and we have to help serve them now. It's important that they receive the benefits that they're entitled to and deserve. So again, John, thank you very, very much. If you want to tell people about this show, you can go to abingtoncam.org and click on It's Around the Old Town. You might want to have some other soldiers look at it, or other friends, and just to make soldiers aware of some of the benefits that are they are entitled to. In the near future, we expect to have Joe Colantoni and the veterans agents from Whitman and East Bridgewater on. In the future show, we're also going to talk about the garbage collection here in Abington, the new policies that some people aren't aware of. And we're going to have Senator John Keenan on. We're still waiting to hear about his drug bill. It's held up in the House, some minor rules affecting it. So we're going to give you some updates in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We have the firefighters doing the reenactment at Island Grove. That, I believe, is August 13th or so. So I believe Ron Howe from the Abington Fire Department is going to come on. So we have a number of things coming on in the very near future. So keep abreast of what's going on. John, again, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody in Abington. I'm grateful for it. My family, my friends are grateful for it, and I know that there's guys over there that you'll never meet in your life. They're grateful for what you guys do. They're grateful to support. So thank you.
I know Jamie Kerr's active right now in Vasilian.
Yep.
And I know there's fellas I'm not mentioning, or women even I'm not mentioning. If you'd like, you can send any names of people who are actively serving to Bob at bobtoomey.com. And we'll get some publicity going for them as well. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Great. I think it went very well. You're very well spoken.